We'll talk about the exam at the end of the period. You got that on then? Good. I just want to read you a few excerpts from Whitman's diary here, 1864 in Central Virginia. Cold pepper, steady rain, dark, thick and warm. Heard the men return to force of the night, heard the shouting, got up, went out to hear what was the matter. The night seemed so many hundred tramping, steadily bites of mud. Some big flaring torches of pine knots I shall never forget, blah blah. So he said all these notes about the actual battle. Some of your notes about the actual battle. Here's one, for instance, in Washington, 1863. Not in your book. He talks about how he was trying to stay alive and working in different ministries to make enough to pay his expenses. This is the last day of the 37th Congress, February 16, 1863. The body during whose existence the most important feuds and abnormal events in American history. Shall I say the history of the world have happened? I have learned many new things. These are the men who do as they do in the midst of the greatest historic chaos and gigantic struggle in the greatest of ages. Look at the little mannequin, shrewd Gabby, dressed in black, hopping about, making motions, amendments. I work somewhere among them, the wounded, every day or any evening. It's not so exhausting as one might think. The endurance and spirit are supplied. My health, thank God, was never better. I feel strong. Yet, I'm just showing you his spirit and what he was doing at this time. Yet there, North must not be so disheartened about Hooker's return. Hooker's army had just been beaten. The blow struck at Lee's and the rebel army in Virginia, generated Richmond and Jeff Davis by this short but tremendous campaign of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Is in my judgment the heaviest and most staggering they've yet got from us, and has not only hit them near where they lived than all McClellan ever did. We have paid for it with thousands of dear noble lives, America's choicest blood. You know, when you compare what they were doing then with what people are squawking, if you want to call it that now, this is a total disaster that they speak about and everything else. I mean, these guys are losing more in one day than America's lost in 3 years. And you didn't hear them talking in this manner, which is the most incredible, unpatriotic, defeatist kind of attitude I've ever witnessed. Even the Vietnam War, which was obviously a stupid affair, should never been embarked on. And people didn't talk the way they're talking now. It's really sad because I don't know what has become of the backbone of this country. We have paid for it thousands of dear noble lives, America's choicest blood, yet the late battles are not without something decisive to show for them. Don't close that door over there because someone is in the next room there doing speech lessons. Do not be discouraged. I am not, even here, amid all the huge mess of traitors, loafers, hospitals, axe grinders, incompetents, officials that go by that name of Washington. I myself yet believe in Hooker. He was the general who was relieved afterwards. He had made so many errors in judgment in terms of the attacks that he made. I write this wounded as the wounded begin to arrive from Hooker's command from bloody Chancellorsville, which was one of the worst battles of the war. So we have him there as a man who volunteered in his midlife to go down and do this kind of thing. That is, tend the wounded and try to help wherever he could. He's seen. This is about a parade in Washington after the Battle of Gettysburg. I saw the parade about noon, Pennsylvania Avenue from 15th Street towards the Capitol. There were 3 regiments of infantry, I suppose the ones doing patrol duty here, 2 or 3 societies of old fellows. As I went down the avenue, I saw a big flaring placard on the bulletin board of a newspaper office announcing glorious victory for the Union Army. Meade had fought Lee at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania yesterday, and the day before and repulsed him most signally, taking 3,000 prisoners, etc., etc. I walked on to the Armory Hospital, took along with me several bottles of blackberry and cherry syrup, good and strong but innocent. Went through several of the wards, announced to the soldiers the news from Meade, gave them all a good drink of syrup with ice water, quite refreshing. This is 1864 in April. Usual agitation all around, concentrated here. Exciting time in Congress. The Copperheads are getting furious. Who are the Copperheads? Well, our knowledge of American history has deteriorated as much as our knowledge of American literature. since the music stations have taken hold of the consciousness of the American mind. The compromise of the people who wanted to make peace at any price in the struggle, rather than see it through. They were the people in the Democratic and partly deserters from the Republican Party who wanted to make a separate peace, sort of like Kerry wanted to do during the Vietnam War. The Compromise of Fears. This is a pretty tiny talk, recognizing such, said a Pennsylvania officer in the hospital to me today. After what has transpired these last 3 years, after first Fredericksburg, I felt discouraged myself and doubted whether our rulers would carry on the war, but that has passed. The war must be carried on. This is from a poet and a pacifist. I would willingly go in the ranks myself if I thought it would profit more than as president, than as at present. I don't know sometimes, but I shall, as it is. Then there's certainly a strange, deep, fervent feeling formed, aroused in the land. Hard to describe or name. It's not a majority feeling. I have a little flag presented to me by one of the wounded. It was taken from a secession, a fight, and rescued by our men in a bloody skirmish following. It cost 3 men's lives to get back the 4x3 flag, to tear it from the breast of a dead rebel for the name of getting their little rag back again. The man that secured it was very badly wounded, and they let me keep it. I was with him a good deal. He wanted to give me some keepsake, he said. He didn't expect to live, so he gave me the flag. Anyway, these are little snippets. So you see this man is really in the midst of it and observing it every inch of the way. And you'll see that what has been missed, I think, in reading someone like this, I'll just read you a little bit more and I'll quit, is the fact that the American public in the North supported war. I mean, the majority. And they were going to undergo tremendous casualties. Their commitment was very, very, very deep. And all you do in Hollywood for the last 50 years is get glorification of the South. Now, of course, many of us come from Southern roots, but you have to, I think Grant said he never saw so many noble men fight for such an ignoble cause. And I think that was an accurate statement that he made, regardless of this idolatry of Jackson and Lee and all these other people for their dashing ability and all this. He said he never saw so many decent, noble men fighting for such an ignoble cause. And I think that is certainly an accurate statement. And regardless of their attractiveness, but Hollywood has built an image of the Civil War like this romantic South and so on, and made the North look like a bunch of like an army of bugs or ants who were sort of mechanized horde of some kind out of the post-industrial age, beating down on the South. I don't think that's the truth at all. And I think that's when you read people like Whitman, you get that there was sterner stuff underneath it, much sterner stuff. And I think when you read someone like Whitman, you see the real, I don't like to say North, the real spirit of what made this country something, the real grit, and willing to see something through to the end. Something that is in no evidence at the moment, as far as I can see, which is very, whatever your criticisms of a given thing are, people carrying it out are for the most part, people get rich, they get rich in every war. There's never been a time when people didn't get rich in war, but for the most part, they are being guided by what they consider to be their duty to protect this country and yourself. They may not be the most brilliant people, but there's nobody who doesn't make mistakes, and it seems to me the support they're getting in the population with all the backbiting and so on is pathetic. There's no credit for anything that they've done, and everything is negative, wrong. They could never have won a war like this with that attitude. That was the attitude they were taking. I mean, they'd been cut and run. This country would have been cut in little pieces. You would never have had the United States that we see before us now with the attitude that you see among the population at the present. I don't care what ethnic background you are, whether you think you belong or you don't belong. The point is that I think Why we say it in this class? Because we're reading this at the moment, but the more people realize what it takes to measure up to the responsibility necessary, same in the Revolutionary War, the more maybe they'll communicate to their neighbors to cool it a bit and have a bit of respect and backbone in the face of adversity. And the more people who are willing to do that on a person-to-person level, the more things might be happier circumstances. No one's going to bail us out of this kind of situation because no other country is under the threat we are under, because no other country is perceived as a superpower. Why would anyone want to put an atom bomb in Bulgaria? It already is a disaster zone. Why would anyone, particularly unless they were allied with the United States, want to bother blowing up Florence? There is no need. The same goes for Paris, since Paris does everything that the people who are involved in this kind of activity who want Paris to do. So America's the only country people are focused on. No one's going to bother about Russia except the Chechens, because Russia's a country in free fall, and the Chechens just happen to be an area that are very interested in independence. But people are focused on this country. Jealousy is extremely strong. This will go on for 50 or 100 years more, until this country either surmounts all of these issues or actually crumbles before all these issues and allows Europe, common market, to take over the directorship of world affairs. And in my mind, Europe has demonstrated over the last 20 years a singular lack of being able to cope with world affairs. They haven't been able to cope with their own affairs without killing, literally hundreds of millions of people. So it seems to me that people in this country need to open up their eyes and see what others have sacrificed in much more stern times. So reading something like Whitman can show that to you. Here's another little snippet. Every now and then in a hospital or camp, there are beings I meet, specimens of unworldliness, disinterestedness, animal purity, heroism. Perhaps some unconscious Indianian, or from Ohio or Tennessee, on whose birth the calmness of heaven seems to have descended, and whose gradual growing up, whatever the circumstances of work life, or change or hardship, or small or no education that attended, the power of a strange spiritual sweetness, fiber, and inward health have also attended. Something veiled and abstracted is often part of the manners of these beings. Have I met them, I say, not seldom in the army, in camp, and in the hospital? The Western regiments contain many of them. They often are young men, obeying the events and occasions about them, marching, soldiering, fighting, foraging, cooking, working on farms or at some trade before the war, unaware of their own nature. As to that, who is aware of his own nature? Their companions only understanding that they are different from the rest, more silent, something odd about them, and apt to go off and meditate and muse in silence. He's particularly impressed by the Western units, and he means by the Western units west of Pennsylvania. He means Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. Those were the western part of the United States at that time. Then he talks about Lincoln here. I've lately been down to the front on a short tour through the Army. This is 1864. Part of the time, maybe beginning of 1865, being in camp among the men. I know a good many soldiers in the ranks and visit the division hospitals. Hospitals in the field are at present thin. The main cases are here. The condition of the Army this past winter has been surpassingly good. The talk here is that Grant is going to make things hot in this region. The idea is that the means of railway transportation between here and the Southwest are to be increased to the extremest possible practical degree. So he understood the strategy of war, so that he can swing large bodies to and fro with unprecedented dispatch and have the use of the Army in either quarter at a few days' notice. We hear he thinks it indispensable that we should smash Lee and the Richmond Junta this summer, though more for our prestige than for any practical need of Richmond as a locale. I can assure you from personal knowledge the Army of the Potomac is in splendid condition physically and soul, and has now the fiber of the most veteran troops, one of the most historic armies. It's very youthful, I think. I think well of Meade, the previous commander. He's very cautious, conscientious, yet ever alert. Anyway, he seems to know what is going on completely. I make no calculation on the course and result of the ensuing summer campaign, except that I believe it will be vehement. Meantime, we are liable at any moment to have an incipient caving into the South, parts of it like North Carolina, but the shrewd ones here still reckon on the desperate fight of the Richmond Utah, ferocious, carrying things with as high a hand as ever the ensuing year. I see the president often. He actually sees him on the streets. I think better of him than many do. He has conscience and homely shrewdness, conceals an enormous tenacity under his mild, gawky Western manner. The difficulties of his situation have been unprecedented in the history of statesmanship. That he has conserved the government so far is a miracle. The difficulties have not been the South alone. The North has been and as yet honeycombed with anti-secession sympathizers, ever ready to undermine. And I am half disposed to predict that after the war closes, we shall see bevies of star straps, 2 or 3 of our own major generals shot for treachery and fully deserve their fate too. I write this in the hospital, having leisure here. I'm sitting by the side of a soldier of the 6th Maine. He had his leg amputated the other day. The sick are coming in pretty freely. Poor wrecks, phantoms, a sign of action as they are breaking up the field hospitals. One's heart bleeds for them. Every day I'm among them as usual. I desire you, if you have any friends able to send me aid and that to feel to do so, that you should show them this letter, as I would like more means it shall be sacred. Then finally, April 7th, 1865, when the army is over. The war's over. The grand culmination of last week impressed me profoundly, of course. I feel more than ever how America has been entirely restated by them, and they will shape the destinies of the future of the whole of mankind. May 7th, this is after Lincoln's dead, and the victory parade, and that's the end. I'll just read you this victory parade, if you don't mind. I don't think many people have heard this. Today, as I'm walking a mile or two, so overcome with joy and pride, south of Alexandria, I fell in with several large squads of the returning Western Army. Again, it's the Western Army that is impressed by. Sherman's men, as they call themselves, the General Sherman who went through the South in 1864 and turned northwards to 65 and basically helped win the war. About 1,000 in all, the largest portion of them half sick, some convalescents on their way to a hospital camp. These fragmentary excerpts with the unmistakable Western physiognomy and idioms, crawling along slowly after a great campaign, blown this way as it were out of their latitude, I marked with curiosity and talked with off and on for over an hour. Here and there one was very sick, but all were able to walk except some of the last who had been given out and were seated on the ground, faint and despondent. These I tried to cheer, told them the camp they were to reach was only a little further way over the hill, and so got them up and started, accompanying some of the worst a little way and helping them, putting them under the support of stronger comrades. May 21st. Saw General Sheridan and his cavalry today, a strong, attractive sight. The men were mostly young, a few middle-aged, superb-looking fellows, brown, spare, keen, well-worn clothing, many with pieces of waterproof cloth around their shoulders hanging down. They dashed along pretty fast in wide, close ranks, all spattered with mud. No holiday soldiers, brigade after brigade. I could have watched for a week. Sheridan stood on a balcony under a big tree, coolly smoking a cigar. His looks and manner impressed me favorably. May 22nd. I've been taking a walk along Pennsylvania Avenue and 7th Street North. The city is full of soldiers running around loose. Officers everywhere of all grades. All have the weather-beaten look of practical service. All armies are now here, or portions of them, for tomorrow's review. You see them swarming like bees everywhere. The grand review. For 2 days now, the broad space of Pennsylvania Avenue along the Treasury Hill, and so by detour around to the President's house, and so up to Georgetown, and across the Aqueduct Bridge, have been alive with a magnificent sight of returning armies. In their wide ranks, stretching clear across the avenue, I watched them march or ride along at a brisk pace through the 2 whole days, infantry, cavalry, artillery, some 200,000 men, some days afterwards 1 or 2 other corps, and then still afterwards a good part Sherman's immense army brought up from Charleston and Savannah and Georgia. May 25th. Well, the review is over, and it was very grand. It was too much, too impressive to be described, but you will see a good bit about it in the papers. If you can imagine a great wide avenue, like Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, quite flat and stretching as far as you can see, with a great white building half as big as Fort Greene on a hill at the commencement of the avenue, and then through this avenue marching, solid ranks of soldiers, 20, 25 abreast, just marching steady all day long, for 2 days, without intermission, one regiment after another. Real war-worn soldiers that have been marching and fighting for years, sometimes for an hour, nothing but cavalry, just solid ranks on good horses, with sabers glistening and carbines hanging by their saddles and their clothes showing hard service, but they mostly all good-looking young men, and then great masses of guns, batteries, cannons, 4, 6 abreast, each drawn by 6 horses, with the gunners seated on the ammunition wagons. And these perhaps a long while in passing, nothing but batteries. Then great battalions of blacks with axes and shovels and pickaxes, real southern African-looking men. Then again, hour after hour, and the old infantry regiment, the men all sunburned. Nearly everyone was some old tatterall in shreds that had been a costly and beautiful flag. The great drum corps, 60 and 80 drummers, massed at the heads of the brigades, playing away, now and then a fine brass band, but often nothing but drums and whistling fifes. Perhaps a band of 60 drums and 15 of 25 pipes playing Lanigan's ball. The different corps banners, the generals with their staffs, the West Army led by Sherman. That in a brief sketch gives you some idea of the great panorama. I saw President Johnson, the Lincoln successor, several times, stood close by him. He was plain but substantial. It seemed wonderful that just that plain, middle-sized, ordinary man, dressed in black without the least badge or ornament, should be the master of this myriad of soldiers, the best that ever trod the earth, with 40 or 50 major generals around him and riding by with their broad yellow satin belts around their waists. I saw General Grant, too, several times. He's the noblest Roman of them all. None of the pictures do him justice. After sundown, I saw him again riding on a large, fine horse with his hat off in answer to the hurrahs. He rode by where I stood, and I saw him well as he rode by on a slow canter with nothing but a single orderly after him. He looks like a good man, and I believe there is much in looks. I saw General Meade, General Thomas, Secretary Stanton, and lots of other soldier officers and generals, but the rank and file was the greatest of all. Anyway, I could read you others, but I won't bother. I just want to give you a taste of, here's a man who went through it, witnessed it all, and then wrote his poetry before and afterwards. And we are the heirs to that poetry, and of course, as we see, they don't seem to teach it in our schools, which is, to my mind, a very sad thing. But let's go back to this song of myself, which gets us started. Now you've got a taste of the fact that you're dealing with someone, you might call him homosexual, or something else in that nature, meant in a derogatory sense, but you're dealing with a full person here of whatever gender and whatever orientation, and he's lacking nothing. He's just not a violent man, although he said he's willing to go to the battlefields if he thought that it would be helpful beyond what he was doing by himself.
It's more like Eisenman.
Well, I'm not interested in what he is or he isn't, but the point is, this is one of the reasons why they probably have avoided reading him in the schools. Well, tell the school boards that, okay? I'm just calling to say that, I'm not analyzing his sexuality, but I think the reason that he hasn't been read is that's the main reason, that they're frightened of presenting someone who has an honest view of his own sexuality in a school environment, for good or for bad, and I'm not judging him. So, we got this first and second part of Song of Myself. Let's just pick up again here in part two, just to get the rhythm of this. Houses and rooms are full of perfumes, the shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it and like it. The distillation would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. This is not beautiful words. This is not John Keats. This is not some rhyme, flowery, beautiful sonata or something like that, sonnet rather. This is just the speech of ordinary America. And he has the rhythm of ordinary America, and it has its own flow. And even today, those of you who are born here or have come here, the rhythm of speech that you inherit here is in this poem, and you can read it as an American speech. You may not choose to use the same words that he uses, but I guess the closest thing it is to today is rap. Though I think this is the rap that I've heard is so crude and vulgar and crass, and does very little for anyone's spirit except tear it down, that I can't even compare it to this in the same breath. But there may be some rap I haven't heard, so I don't want to be a general condemnation of it. But this is high-minded rap, okay? Not gutter rap. So, or if you like, ghetto rap. This is something, there is that. Taking the lowest aspect of life in a given area and, disseminating it rather than trying to uplift, to my mind, pull down and make people feel bad about themselves and the world around them, which I don't think does any good in a short lifetime. Life is short enough. It seems to me that what one's looking for is people are going to make better out of what one has to face, not worse out of it. So I don't apologize for that. I think this is a higher form of rap, if you want to call it that. And I may be wrong, it's just my own view, but you'll have to think. This has been very highly regarded in terms of the beat movement, but I don't think there's anything beat about Whitman, and I don't think that they had any right to take Whitman as their guide. They honed in on his sexuality and felt an identification there. But their attitude towards the country was the total 180 degrees opposite of Whitman. And they used his rhythms to write their own kind of poetry, the beat movement I'm talking about. People like Kerouac and the other writers of that kind that you may have heard of, you may not have, and they claim Whitman was their inspiration. But I don't see Whitman as being their inspiration at all. I don't think Whitman was like Burroughs. What's the name of Burroughs' famous book? Huh?
Origin.
No, he had a different book. Not that, you're right, Burroughs. Talking about Burroughs, it wasn't the beat movement. There's a book about heroin addiction. One was called Junkie. And I think with the other book, I don't think Whitman was extolling that kind of thing, frankly. William S. Burroughs. You guys must know the name of some of his works. They've been dominating literature for the last 50 years, but I said it's not a very literary group here. In any case, houses and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it and like it. The distillation will intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. There's no rhythm there that you can point out. It's a new form of poetry. He broke poetry open, actually. No one wrote this way before Whitman. Everyone had to construct, you know, the da 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 da, and there was always some artificial rhyme, some clever word that was being used, but the spirit actually was not the essence of what was being communicated. What was being communicated was the artistry of the given writer to construct a good-looking piece of poetry. This doesn't look good, but the spirit is communicated, I think. And that's what he's trying to do. And it's more like biblical verse than it is like modern poetry. And I think that his inspiration was the Bible in some odd way. The atmosphere is not a perfume. It has no taste of the distillation. I mean, that's not poetry. The atmosphere is not a perfume. How is that poetry? And you feel that there is an unconscious rhythm here, which is why I'm reading it to you. If that takes hold and begins to hypnotize one. It is odorless. It is for my mouth forever. I am in love with it. You hear the syncopation there. It's Whitman was very intoxicated by opera. He used to go to the opera all the time in New York City and hang out there, you know, in the cheap seats, looking, you know, in the standing room and go. And he obviously took a lot of inspiration from the musical rhythms that he heard. I will go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked. I am mad for it to be in contact with me. And again, reading it, you feel the American syntax, but you can't put your finger on it. If I was an English person, it wouldn't sound like this. If I was a person from a foreign culture who didn't know English, American English well, I wouldn't be able to read it with the right syncopation, if you like. The smoke of my own breath echoes, ripples. I think Bush actually would probably do well with this, better than his prepared speech, because these are 4 or 5 phrase lines, 4 or 5 word phrases, you know, all strung together in a kind of rhythm, and that's all Bush can put together is 4 or 5 words at a time, which is why he loses his debates with Kerry, because Kerry can, you know, spin out 50 or 60 words, but Bush is only able to say, "We'll smoke them out," or something like, "You can run but you can't hide." I think that's all he can do, because he's not an intellectual. You know, that doesn't mean he's a bad person. just means that he doesn't function intellectually. And I don't have the same page here. It's on to myself. Okay, first, I'm in paragraph 2. The smoke of my own breath echoes, ripples, buzz, whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and vine. Now, you know when he gets in the crotch, that he really means the crotch. And he's not talking about some kind of vegetable tangle of shrubbery that he maybe have talked about in the earlier few words. So for that kind of thing, you know, he isn't being totally forthcoming, but for that kind of thing, he's been, at his own time, people thought he was dirty. He was Howard Stern of his own time, not to dignify Stern with any respect. My respiration and inspiration, the beating of my heart, there it is, those 4-word lines, or 4 beat lines, the beating of my heart, there are 5 beats there. The passing of blood and air through my lungs, the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, and of the shore and dark-colored sea rocks, and of the hay in the barn. So there is a rhythm here. And the hay in the barn, you know, but what it is, I wouldn't be able to plot out for you. In other words, you can't do like you might have done in secondary school, plot the rhythm of this poem. You wouldn't be able to do it because it's an unconscious rhythm. The sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, and of the shore and dark-colored sea rocks, and of the hay in the barn. It's not high-sounding words, just simple things. The sound, he created words like belched words. That really wouldn't have been a word. The sound of the belched words of my voice, loose to the eddies of the wind, a few light kisses, a few embraces, a reaching around of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees, the supple boughs wag, and sentences that go on for pages. The light alone, or on the rush of streets, or along the fields and hillsides, the feeling of health, the full moon trill, the song of me, there, song of myself, rising from bed and meeting the sun. So he's introduced himself. And this is going to be a song about himself, a song of me. It's just me. I'm the hero of this poem. Not John Wayne, not Mel Gibson, or whatever his name is. Not one of those, you know, low-life people. Whitman is the hero of this. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? And he starts asking his questions. Changes the rhythm entirely. Have you reckoned the earth much? And again, the rhythm is pure American. Have you practiced so long to learn to read? And again, I don't know how he's done it, what the rhythm is, but it's got a pure rhythm. Have you practiced so long? And that's where his genius is. And that's why I think he has been acknowledged to be, with all his shortcomings, and they are numerous, the greatest American poet up till these days. And you say, well, why? Well, something natural. I mean, Emerson was not reading something accidentally. He recognized this power here. Sometimes he imitated himself. He tried to do it over and over again. He began to, you know, fall short, but still, at his best, it was something quite rising out of the American people itself, the uneducated mass of the American people. Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me. You shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. So now it's a spiritual message. It's not just a poem. And he knows that there are millions of universes, the same as our modern scientists knows. You shall no longer take things in second or third hands. And you will start to think for yourself. You're not going to take it from me. You're not going to take it from Eisenman. You're not going to take it from some other professor or whoever else. You're going to start to filter it for yourself, and that's what he wants you to do. And your greatest compliment to him would be to do that. You shall possess the good of the earth. There are millions of earth's suns left. You shall no longer take things second or third hands, or look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself, just as myself, the self in Hinduism, Atman, and so on. But for Whitman, a slightly different self. Was Whitman aware of all these other religions? Yeah, he'd been to the library, he'd read about it, and we'll see that he knows about Atman and Brahman. He mentions them at some point. You know, these things have been translated, and he was very up to date. 3. I've heard what the talkers were talking, the talk of the beginning and the end, but I did not speak about a beginning and an end. Again, we're in a religious environment here. There was never any more inception than there is now, and here is the pulsing rhythm of his poem. And anyone can read it. You see, that's the great thing. You can take it to your boyfriend or girlfriend, you can read it to them, and they can react, because it's ordinary English. It's not pretentious. It's still understandable 150 years later. There was never any more inception than there is now, nor any more youth or age than there is now, and will never be any more perfection than there is now, nor any more heaven and or hell than there is now. Urge and urge and urge, always the Procrean urge of the world, out of the dimness, opposite equals advance, always substance, always increase, always sex. And again, I'm not sure I agree with every word he says, but one responds to his rhythm. Again, the sex emphasis. Always a nitto identity, always distinction, always a breed of life. To elaborate is no avail, learn and unlearn feel that it is so. There, feel it. It's nothing intellectual. Sure is the most certain, sure plumb in the uprights, well entreated, braced in the beams. Now he's talking about his own body. How he considers himself like a horse or something. Or your body. Stout as a horse, affectionate, haughty, electrical. When he says electrical, he means sexed up. I and this mystery, here we stand. Now here I am, I stand before you. This huge mound of electrical flesh, braced in the beams, sturdy and so on. The I and this mystery, the mystery is he and his soul. The mystery of the soul, and he doesn't make any assumptions about it. Clear and sweet is my soul. He goes on to tell you what he's talking about. And clear and sweet is all that is not my soul. So look, I'm not going to put one down in favor of the other. I'm not like these people who are meditating and so on and tell you that the body is evil and the soul is pure and so on and so. All of it is good to me. There is no evil in me. This is a new moral message, an American democratic moral message. You take it or leave it. You can go back to the old one if you want, or you can pick up where he starts. And he's not a religious teacher in the sense that he has a movement, but he is saying something about the things we're talking about. And sweet is all, clear and sweet is my soul, and clear and sweet is all that is not my soul. Lacks one, lacks both. The unseen is proved by the seen. He doesn't know if they're separate or not, but he doesn't think one is worse or lower than the other. Till that becomes unseen and receives proof in its turn. I am satisfied. Oh, wait, he goes on. Showing the best, dividing the worst, age vexes age, knowing the perfect fitness, equanimity of things, while they discuss, I am silent, I go bathe and admire myself. Let them jabber, let people like in this class talk. I'm going to go to the river and have a swim. Welcome is every organ and attribute of me, and any man hearty and clean. And he says, I am perfectly clean, and every attribute and part of me is perfectly clean, and any man hearty and clean is welcome to me too. And he's mentioning men here, not women at the moment. But later on, you're right. There is a bisexual, if you want to use modern terminology to refer to him. I think he's just sexual. I don't think it matters which way it goes. I don't think there were women available to him. And I don't think he was in the money enough to probably afford streetwalkers, and I don't think he would have probably bothered with streetwalkers anyway. So I don't think he was looking for men's rooms, assignations. He wanted free intercourse with a willing companion, not the Kobe Bryant type up in the Colorado hotel room. You know, supposedly, I don't know if that was willing or unwilling, but I just read Coach Jackson's comments on Kobe in the paper today, which were terrible. He said that he left because of Kobe, and that Kobe actually was a manageable person, and the only player he ever encountered that he really couldn't do anything with it. He knew that he was out of here when the ownership began to favor Kobe, because he said he wanted Kobe traded. He told the ownership in January last he wanted Kobe traded, and then he saw that he was on the way out, him, Jackson. So just a byproduct of what we've been expressing here in LA. So I don't know about the hotel room assignations. Whitman was not on that level. So his sexuality, yeah. The only people available to him would be men, frankly. I don't think he probably ever had an experience with a woman. Because what woman were, first of all, willing to come near him, this ugly, smelly hunk of, dirt. And besides that, there weren't women who were free the way people are these days that could encounter him in a one-to-one direct relationship. People were protected, chaperoned themselves. Women were not walking around on the streets unless they were streetwalkers. So, which is not a good phrase, but I don't know another term for it. So it's a different age. So yes, he's, I don't know, bisexual. He's sexual, and he needs a sexual outlet, period. And he'll take whatever's available. I probably would have taken a donkey if it was there. I don't know. But he's honest about it anyway. He's not a liar. He's not covering anything up. He's totally frank. And for 1850 to be this frank, you've got to think about that. That is just an amazingly revolutionary attitude. Welcome is every organ and aptitude of me, and of any man hearty and clean, not an inch, not a particle, or inch is vile, and none should be less familiar than the rest. He doesn't care what any church says, what any preaching says, what Hinduism says, what Buddhism says, what Christianity says. He has already staked himself out as a totally independent thinker here. That's why I'm reading this, because I think this is a religious statement from the heart of America. Whether you agree with it doesn't mean it's everyone agrees. It's still someone we have coughed up who is both poet and what you'd have to reckon as a prophet, a quasi-prophet, in the sense that he's making a religious statement through poetry. That's what prophets do. Whether he has a following or not, I don't know. I think Whitman has a following. I am satisfied. I've said what I want. I'm happy. I see, I dance, I laugh, I sing. It's all that I need in life. As the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side in these inns and places, and this is certainly a male, through the night and withdraws of the peep of the day with health's stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered with white towels, swelling the house with their plenty, and I'm happy about whatever transpired in the night with this person, male or female. He's left or she's left me baskets covered with white towels, an image of beauty and purity and happiness. Still I postpone my acceptation and realization and scream at my eyes, and again, it's totally honest and frank, 1856. That they turn from gazing around me and down the road and forthcoming cipher and show me a set at exactly the value of one and exactly the value of two, and which is ahead. Next live verse. Trippers and askers. He's a tripper. Maybe not an LSD tripper, but another kind of tripper. Surround me. People I meet, the effect upon me of my early life, of the ward, of the city I live in, of the nation. The latest dates, discoveries, events, society's authors, old and new. It's going to be a complete statement now. It's going to go on 50 sections. My dinner, stress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied differences of some men or women I love, the sickness of one or many folks who are of myself, or ill-doing, or loss, or lack of money, or depressions, or exaltations, battles, horrors, fratricidal war, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events, these come to me days and nights and go from me again. But they are not the me myself. Here's a bit of Hinduism. The me myself. I suppose you'd call this the Atman. Apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am. There is something in me different from all this changing around here. This inner being stands, amused, complacent, compassionating. That's a new word. He doesn't say compassionate. He says compassionating. He's going to make up new words. Idle, unitary, looks down, is erect, bends an arm. Just me standing here. So I song of myself on an impalpable certain rest. Looking, you see, if I didn't force you to read this with me, you wouldn't pick it up. So the fact that I force it down your throats, like force feeding one of those babies where they shove food down their throat, whether they like it or not, is actually, a plus in some ways, because I force you to confront a different thing than you're used to, which to me is what education is about and why I do it. And I think actually you had it force-fed into you. You might reject it and barf it out, throw it up. That's totally disgusting, regurgitating crap that Professor Eisenman has laid on me, which I can well understand. On the other hand, you might find that this is quite extraordinary and that you wouldn't have encountered it otherwise. But you're certainly not going to do it yourself in 95% of the cases. And the people in your family's environment, you know very well, are not going to do it. Okay. I mean, I know, I can judge by my family. I know my mother isn't going to read this. I could have brought her, well, I could have brought her 1,000 times. All she's going to do is watch the stock report on the television. She's never going to, regurgitate Walt Whitman, even though she supposedly went to a college of some kind, but I don't know what she did there. She certainly didn't learn anything. She knows nothing about anything. Well, she knows how to survive. Don't try to pull a fast one on her. That's what she knows. But didn't learn that at college. Anyway, let's get it back here. So here, looks down, is erect, bends an arm, an impalpable certain rest. He likes that sort of thigh cocked to one side. Looking beside curved head, curious what will come next, both in and out of the game, watching, wondering, just standing aside. Backward I see in my own days where I sweated through fog with linguists and contenders. I have no mockings or arguments. I witness and wait. And here's another confession. I believe in you, my soul, and the other, I am, must not abase itself to you, and you must not be abased to the other. So whatever we are together, we are together. There's no separating us, and one should not abase itself to the other. Again, this flies in the face of the Hinduism that we just read, whether you see that. It probably flies in the face of any Christian belief that you've been presented with. It flies in the face of most of these body and soul or approaches to existence. Now he gets on, changes gears. Loaf with me on the grass. Loose the stop from your throat. Not words, not music or rhyme I want, not custom or lecture, not even the best. He knows he's a prophet. He's expecting something from people. Only low like I like the hum of your velvet voice. He likes to lie on the grass. We don't have much grass in the West that you can lie on. It's always harsh and prickly. But back east, if you've ever been east of the Rockies, they have wonderful grass. How many have noticed that? That the grass in the east is delicious, soft grass. It grows up and has a sweet smell to it. You just like to lie in it. You like to pick pieces of it, chew on it, stuff like that, put it in your mouth. How many have experienced that I'm talking about? You know it. You guys know it. So you know it. So the Westerners who haven't been back east, the grass here is hard and prickly. You've got nothing to pick up and chew on. You don't feel like lying on it much. But the grass back east, you just want to get on it and lie on it, and you can lie on it for hours. And there's always something buzzing around and some nice smell and stuff like that. He likes to loaf. That's anything wrong in it. He's not advocating, working every minute of your life. He thinks it's good to just stop and take it easy. And that's why he's talking about loafing all of the time. And now he remembers another day. And this is pretty raunchy for 1855. I think you will agree, don't you think? I mind how once we lay such a transparent summer morning, how you settled your head athwart my hips and gently turned over upon me. Male or female, I don't know here, but I'm sure it's male. And parted the shirt from my bosom bone and plunged your tongue to my bare stripped heart and reached to you, felt my beard, and reached to you, held my feet. Oh my God, we're really down and dirty there, that's for sure. So these are the kind of things that I think frighten them. What is this man talking about in a poem? And this is not Longfellow. What was Longfellow's whole name? What was his name? What? And this is not Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Merrily, I forget how was that, the Paul Revere. And this is the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 17th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now. What? It's not that kind of stuff at all. I mean, this is another genre. Well, this is, I guess, the Beats did respond to this kind of thing. That's why they took him up. Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that pass all the argument of the earth. I guess after that episode it did. And I know the hand of God is the promise of my own, and now we know he's still talking about God and religion. And I know the Spirit of God is the brother of my own, and that all men ever born are also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers, and that a counsel of the creation is love. He made that word up, and I don't know what it means, but I can imagine just some part of the creation. And limitless are leaves, the name of this book, leaves, still are drooping in the fields, and brown ants and little wells beneath them, and mossy scabs, and the worm fence, heap stones, elder lane, and pokeweed. Now we're getting into some of the really deep stuff, if you want to call it that, or hard stuff of the poem. And the title here, A Child Said, What is the grass? Leaves of grass is the name of this. Fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green stuff woven. What is the grass? What is the grass? Or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord. A scented gift and remembrancer, designedly dropped. Look at that English, designedly dropped. We call that alliteration. Really nicely done. A scented gift and remembrancer, designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corner, that we may see and remark and say whose. Or I guess the grass is itself a child, a produced babe of the vegetation. Or I guess it's a uniform hieroglyphic, and it means sprouting alike in broad zones and narrow zones, growing among black folks as among white. And for anyone who thinks America was racist at that time, well, insofar as a grassroots person, and you can call him grassroots really, like Whitman, there's not an inch of racism in him. And I get tired of hearing all this about whitey, racist, this, that, everything else. There is racism everywhere among all peoples to a certain extent, but very few peoples fought a civil war over the reasons this country fought a civil war and sacrificed that number of people for the issues that were at stake in that civil war, and with the tenacity that it was fought, to be told all the time racists. There are institutions that are not salutary. But you would see Whitman in the 1850s, and he is not a stick of racism in him. The opposite, he celebrates diversity. And now this, to my mind, is the stuff that won the Civil War. This was the ranks of the Union Army. And people just don't realize what was going on then, because we hear all this other rubbish about these romantic people in Hollywood idolize. There was a recent movie that scored a bomb, but I thought it was actually pretty good. Cold Harbor, I think it was Cold Mountain, yeah. And I think that gave a better picture of the Confederacy than you usually get. It actually did not romanticize the Confederacy for a change, even though the hero of the movie was a Confederate soldier. And what he found behind the lines and everything was pretty horrendous. I thought Cold Mountain was, for a change, a decent attempt to do something fair. Okay, so, growing among black folks as among white, Canuck, Tuckahoo, these are Indian names. Congressman, Cuff. Cuff was a name for blacks, I think, in those days. I give them the same, I receive the same. I don't make any distinction between anybody. And now it seems to me the beautiful uncut hair of graves. Tenderly will I use you, curling graves. It may be you transpire from the breasts of young men. It may be if I had known them, I would have loved them. It may be you are from old people or from offspring taken too soon from their mother's laps, or here you are the mother's laps. This grass is very dark to be from the white heads of old mothers, darker than the colors beards of old men, dark to come from under the faint red roofs of mouths. Oh, I perceive through all so many uttering tongues, and I perceive they do not come from the roofs of mouth for nothing, and I wish I could translate the hints about the dead young men and women, and he cares very, very much, obviously, for all these things. Then the hints about the old men and mothers and the offsprings taken soon out of the laps. He doesn't claim that he has all the answers. And what do you think has become of the young and the old men? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows me there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest and cease the moment life appeared. All goes onward and outward. Nothing collapses, and to die is different from anyone supposed, and luckier. So again, he has his own view of death too, which I'm not sure I understand. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it's just as lucky to die, and I know it. Again, the prophet speaking. He knows what we don't know. I pass death with the dying, and birth is Krishna, and death and birth with the new-washed babe, and I am not contained between my hat and my boots. Look at me, I'm not just me. And peruse manifold objects, no two alike, and every one good. The earth good, the stars good, their adjuncts good, but I pronounce it all good. I am not an earth or an adjective of an earth. I am the mate and companion of people, all just as immortal and fathomless as myself. They do not know how immortal they are, but I know it. They don't know that they're immortal, but I know. And he goes on like that. And then he ends that little section. Andre, take your clothes off. You're not, this is 1855. You're not guilty to me. You're not stale or discarded. I don't care how ugly you are. I see through the broadcloth and gingham whether or no, and am around, tenacious, acquisitive, tireless, and cannot be shaken away. So you have women dogging your trail. Get away from me, you ugly bugger. Anyway, next thing, he's looking at a little baby in a cradle. The little one sleeps in the cradle, lift the gauze, and look at time and silently brush away the flies from the hand. But he's always tender, you see. He brushes the flies away from the head. The youngster and the red-faced girl turn aside on the bushy hill I peer viewing from the top. So he goes on like that. And by 10, well, by 9, he's taking in hay from the barn, country scene in America. He's now giving you scenes of American life. 10, he's in the mountains, he's hunting, he's aboard a Yankee clipper, he's at sea with American ships. He's with the clam diggers, having clam chowder. It's a great picture of American life, as good as a photographer could take at that time. Now here's a scene that I think is interesting. 2 of them. I saw the marriage of a trapper in the open air in the far west. The bride was a red girl. Is he against this? No. Does he have any prejudice? No. He's for it. Her father and his friend sat near, so, hey, 1855 America, racist America. No, not. Only in the image of some. Her father is for not the people who fought the war, not the people who went down to the battlefields, maybe the shirkers. Her father and her friend sat near cross-legged and dumbly smoking. They had moccasins to their feet because, you know, the Union took tremendous sacrifices. They lost maybe twice as many people as the South lost in the battles, and still they kept coming. Her friend and father sat near cross-legged and dumbly smoking. They had moccasins on their feet, so I would never denigrate the Union Army in the Civil War the way you hear it sometimes done. That showed tremendous resilience and courage and tenacity. Her father and friend sat near cross-legged and dumbly smoking. They had moccasins to their feet and large, thick blankets hanging from their shoulders. On a bank lounged a trapper. He was dressed mostly in skins. His luxuriant beard and curls protected his neck. He held his bride by the hand. She had long lashes. Her head was bare. Her coarse, straight locks ascended upon her voluptuous limbs and reached to her feet. Does he like the woman? Yeah. Is he prejudiced against her? Not even 1 even inch. Do you think he saw this scene? Or is he just taking that as romantic imagination? Did he go to the West? Did he go out on the gold rush, 1849? I think he did, but I may be dreaming. I mean, I don't think he just is imagining everything. Some of it in that. Here's one I don't think he imagines either. The runaway slave came to my house and stopped outside. I heard his motions, crackling the twigs on the woodpile. He's in Ohio someplace near the river. The slaves coming across from Kentucky or someplace. Through the swung half door of the kitchen, I saw him limpsy. He makes up a new word. It's a mixture of being sick and limping. I saw him limpsy and weak, and went where he sat on a log and led him in and assured him, and brought water and filled a tub for his sweated body and bruised feet, and gave him a room that ended for my own, and gave him some coarse, clean clothes, and remember perfectly well his revolving eyes and his awkwardness, and remember putting plasters on the galls of his necks and eggs, dressing his wounds and ankles. He stayed with me a week before he was recuperated and passed north. I had him sit next to me at the table. My firelock leaned in the corner. What's the firelock doing in the corner? Oh, that's his gun, man. He's going to protect this guy. 1855 America. So, again, before you listen to all the propaganda, you should read a little deeper into some other people before you make your mind of what made this country. That's why I bring someone like Whitman here. The next one is about a woman, 11, looking out of her window, watching 28 beautiful young naked men bathing in the water in a river, and she secretly steals down, and I don't know if she joins them, but she comes closer and basically wants to be with them. naked in the stream with them. She owns the fine house by the bank. She hides and richly dressed at the blinds of the window. Which of the young men does she like the best? Are the homeliest of them is beautiful to her? Where are you off to, lady? I see you. You splash in the water. Yeah, she goes in. You stay stock still in your room, dancing and laughing along the beach. Come the 29th bather. The rest do not see her, but she saw them and loved them. The beards of the young men glistened with wet. It ran from their long hair. Little streams passed over their body. An unseen hand also passed over their bodies. It descended trembling from their temples and ribs. Well, yeah, this is really very advanced for the time. Here's another picture of a black. I'm very interested in the Afro-American problem. He uses the old language Negro here, but you know, these things change from time to time. Sometimes colored is in, then black, Negro is in, then black is in, then Afro-American is in, and now coloreds are back, people of color. So, you know, the language keeps on revolving from time to time, so we shouldn't hold anyone's language against them. They're a part of their time. The Negro holds firmly the reins of his, nowadays, that's not an in-word. So another, maybe in France, negritude was very in. The Negro holds firmly the reins of his four horses. The block swags underneath on his tied-over chain. He's in the South, and this is a slave. The Negro that drives the long dray of the stone yard, steady and tall he stands, but Whitman stops to regard him and admire him. Poised on one leg on the string piece, his blue shirt exposes his ample neck and breast and loosens over his hip band. His glance is calm and commanding. He tosses the slouch of his hat away from his forehand. The sun falls on his crispy hair and mustache, falls on the black of his polished and perfect limbs. Polished and perfect limbs. Prejudice? Any derogatory feelings here? I behold the picturesque giant and love him. And I do not stop there. I go with the team also. Does he like this person? You know, if he likes him, he loves him. In me, the caresser of life, forever moving backward as well as forward, slewing to niches aside and junior bending, not a person or object missing, absorbing all to myself amid their song. 14, the press of my foot on the earth springs 100 affections. I am enamored of growing outdoors, of men that live among cattle or taste oceans and winds. He talks about the opera, and then the next line, my God, 15, he's got every kind of scene you can imagine from American life. And 16, too. He's with Yankees, Kentuckians, Georgians, boatmen, Canadians, Vermont people, Texas rag, comrade of Californians. Gets a bit corny sometimes. When he's good, he's really good. 17. These are really the thoughts of all men of all ages and lands. They are not original with me. If they're not yours as much mine, they're nothing or next to nothing. If they're not in the riddle, in the untying of the riddle, they're nothing. If they're not just as close as they are distant, they're nothing. This is the grass, again the grass, that grows wherever the land and the water is. This is the common air that bathes the globe. Music in the next line, he likes music. And then 19. This is the meal equally set. This is the meat for natural hunger. It is for the wicked, just the same as the righteous. I make appointments with all. I will not have a single person slighted or left away. I'm not putting anyone aside. The kept woman, sponger, thief are thereby invited. The heavy-lipped slave is invited. The venerale, the AIDS victim or the, venereal disease, whatever, is invited. There should be no differences between them and the rest. This is the press of a bashful hand. This is the float and order of hair. This is the touch of my lips to yours. This is the murmur of yearning. This is a far of depth and height reflecting my own face. This is the thoughtful merge of myself and outlet again. Do you guess I have some intricate purpose? Well, I have. The 4th month showers have. The mic on the side of rocks have. Do you take it? I would astonish. Does the daylight astonish? Does the early red dart twittering through the woods astonish? Do I astonish more than they? Who goes there? 20. Hankering, gross, mystical, nude. That's Whitman. How is it I extract strength from the beef I eat? What is a man anyway? What am I? What are you? Whimpering and truckling with powders for invalids. Conformity goes to the 4th remove. I wear my hat as I please indoors and out. This is me, man. I'm hankering, gross, mystical, nude. I wear my hat as I please. Why should I pray? Why should I venerate and be ceremonious? I know I am solid and sound. To me, the converging objects of the universe perpetually flow, and all written to me, I must get what the writing means. I know I am deathless. I know this orbit of mine cannot be swept by a carpenter's compass. I know I shall not pass like a child's curlicue cut with a burned stick at night. I know I am august. Another great line. I know I am. How do I know it's not August? Just the rhythm. I know I am august, great. I do not trouble my spirit to vindicate myself or understand. I see the elementary laws, never apologize. I reckon I behave no prouder than the level I plant my house by. After all, I exist, I as I am. That is enough. If no other in the world be aware, I sit content. And if each and all be aware, I sit content. One world is aware, by far the largest to me, and that is myself. That's why this is song of myself. And whether I come my own today, or 10,000 or 10 million years, I can cheerfully take it now, or with equal cheerfulness I can wait. I am the poet of the body, and I am the poet of the soul. I am the poet of women, the same as the man, and I say it is great to be a woman as it is to be a man. And I say there's nothing that greater than the mother of men. I am he that walks with a tender and growing night. I call the earth and sea half held by the night. Press close, bare bosom, night. Press close, magnetic, nourishing night. Night of the south winds, night of the large few stars. Here we have Van Gogh here. Night of the large few stars, still stars at night, still nodding night, mad, naked summer night. Listen to that English he gets into. Also, F. Scott Fitzgerald, if you know the book Tender is the Night. Sure, it's right out of here, he took that. And it just goes on and on and on and on, as you see. I'll have to pick up there. I wanted to just read here, for instance, 24. Walt Whitman, a cosmos, he names himself, of Manhattan the sun. Turbulent, fleshy, eating, drinking, breeding, no sentimentalist, no standard above men and women or apart from them, no more modest than immodest. Unscrew the locks from the doors. Unscrew the doors from their jams. I speak the password primeval. I give the sign of democracy. So this guy is out of his mind, totally intoxicated, and he's the song of the Democratic man. As far as our test goes, which I assume we're having next time, we're all agreed on that, yeah? What? Next Thursday, right? Yeah, next time. So what we can expect on this test? You can bring your Hinduism books, your drug addict book. You can bring notes on note cards. I'll have 2 out of 3 questions. You'll ask to answer to in some intelligent way. You don't have a lot of time. You'll discuss the question, something about the movie we saw, maybe talking a little bit about the religious themes, if there are any. I've already forgotten the movie. The mixture of Christianity and native religion that we see there. Maybe some comparison with a book like Castaneda's book, What is Religion, about meeting, what's it called? I forgot the name of that. Mescalito. You see how far beneath Whitman someone like Castaneda is. I mean, it's like looking at an ant versus a titanic being. And, it's just quite an amazing thing when you compare people to see what the differences are. And then we get into the Hinduism stuff, and I'm trying to work out what Krishna is, what meditation is, what yoga is, what karma yoga is. So there are 2 out of 3 questions I can easily, dig up out of that. I don't want to give it to you in advance, but basically you'll have to hold forth in an intelligent way on some aspect of these materials and fill a piece of paper up. If you can fill a piece of paper up, you can pass the exam. What's your question?
Do we have to bring a blue book?
You can bring toilet paper, you can write on your undershirt if you like, but if you don't want to use any of those things, bring a blue book.
Open book, right?
Open book in the sense of a book, Carlos Castaneda and the Bhagavad Gita, but no other books, okay? And the books we read in this class, that's open, yeah, and some note cards. Don't bring all your notebooks, because we want to see everyone go on through your notebooks. just some cards, how many, 10, 15, whatever you think is stop you from forgetting, and some short identifications, just to keep you on the straight and narrow. Something like, for instance, what is the name of Carlos Castanada's teacher, or something like that. Something that you have to actually say it, not choose it from A, B, and C. No multiple choice. No true and false. Life is not true and false or multiple choice. Life is the ability to pull information out of yourself. And that's it. Anything else? Blessings and peace be on you. Forgive me if I offend any of you with some of the silly things I say. I don't mean to.